Karen Bonafilio, Inner Realms, Outer Journeys. We have a special guest for you today. We truly do. Where I'm going to be talking to Brian D. Smith. Brian, would you like to say hello to the audience before I introduce you?
Hey there, everybody.
Okay, well, Brian and I walk the same road, and that is the road of grief. So we're going to be focused on love and grief today. Brian D. Smith, or Brian, I'm just going to call you Brian, is
Brian's fine.
is a grief guide. He's a life coach and the host of the podcast Grief to Growth. After the devastating loss of his daughter, Shayna, Brian dedicated his life to helping others heal. You know, and I'm going to deviate for just a second, but Brian, I have found that the people that have lost a really significant member, that drives them to try to help others that are
Mhm.
also going to experience a loss like that.
Yeah, I found the same thing.
Yeah, it does. I just knew for myself if I could help anyone going through what I was, then it was all worth it.
Hmm.
He is author of Grief to Growth, Planted Not Buried, and a board member of Helping Parents Heal. Brian brings heart and insight to the most profound questions of life, death, and what lies beyond. Brian, although we walk the same road, your background and your journey was quite different than mine. So, can you please tell us about what happened?
Yeah,
What's going
sure. So I'll start kind of maybe in the middle because there was before Shayna passed and after Shayna passed. And Shayna's my daughter. Shayna was 15 years old when she passed away. It was suddenly in June of 2015. So as I said, she was 15 and a half years old. She was a healthy, happy teenage girl. She was a volleyball player, basketball player, very good at academics and everything. So she had been to a volleyball tournament the week before, a couple of days before actually. She was on a national team. She was we were living in Ohio. She was in Florida at this volleyball tournament and returned home. She and my wife had gone to the tournament with her, and she was sleeping in her bed that night. It was a Tuesday night, just like any other night. And we went to wake her up the next morning, and she wasn't responsive. So she had passed away in her sleep.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that was just obviously devastating, but also very surprising. It was just like she'd had a mild heart condition that had been diagnosed, and she was seeing a cardiologist, but he had said come back every couple of years, and we'll just make sure things are okay. But meanwhile, you're clear to do whatever, her sports and everything, and she was on no medications for that or anything. So it was just a totally unexpected passing. We call it sudden unexplained death in children, or SUDC. Unfortunately, I'm finding out now it's not as uncommon as we might think it would be.
Mm-hmm.
So when Shayna passed away, you mentioned helping parents heal. Someone suggested I reach out to this guy named Mark Ireland, who is one of the co-founders of Helping Parents Heal, which is an organization for parents who have lost children. And I met Mark. Through Mark, I met Elizabeth Bosan, who's the other co-founder. And through a whole series of synchronicities, I ended up getting involved with Helping Parents Heal. So
Mm-hmm.
first is an organization that helped me and my wife in our grief journey. And then after I'd been with Helping Parents Heal for a year or so, I stepped into a leadership role. And so I started helping parents. And then about 4 years after Shayna passed is when I started Grief to Growth. And it's grief, the numeral two growth for those that are listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a book and started my podcast. And so, as you were saying earlier, I think for people that have suffered this kind of a profound loss,
Mm-hmm.
after a certain period of time, we feel like, I really wish someone had been there for me when I was going through this.
Right.
So we become those people.
Mm-hmm. So now you are that someone.
Yes, that's what I try to be. I try to
Mhm.
be,
Boy, that's
it's really interesting because when Shayna first passed, I thought, this is it. My life is over. I've never experienced joy again.
mhm.
And I wasn't even sure I really wanted to, frankly. But being around some parents who had gone through the same thing, and seeing that they were, a year out, 2 years out, 10 years out, it gave me a sense of hope. And so now when I talk to people that are going through that early, that point where you feel like you just can't bear it phase of grief, I want to be there to say, you can get through this. It's a choice. There's some actions you have to take, but you can come out better on the other side even.
And everyone does handle grief differently.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, I want to point out the picture behind Brian. That's his gorgeous daughter.
That's my
That's the
daughter
one.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and losing her unexpectedly, I think that's a really tragic way to lose someone. Um, and it's kind of like the same thing. I woke up and my husband was gone, and you woke up and your daughter was gone. I
Yeah.
didn't realize. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's really interesting because Shayna was on the volleyball team, as I mentioned
mhm.
earlier, the high school volleyball team, and three girls on the volleyball team passed within a year and a half. And these are high school girls.
What?
So two of them from brain cancer, and then Shayna from a sudden transition.
Are you
And my
kidding?
and my
No.
wife and I have thought about this. It's like her friend Victoria was on the team, and Victoria was about a year older than Shayna, so she was like 16.
Uh-huh.
And watching her parents have to deal with her with glioblastoma and going through, watching her regress and get worse and all that. So you think, okay, well, is that worse, or is it worse to have them pass suddenly? And you realize there's no worse. They both just suck tremendously.
Yes, they do.
We didn't get a chance to say goodbye. Shayna, I said good night to her. I'll never forget the night. We were sitting on the couch watching TV like any other normal night, and we went up to bed. I usually kissed her, and told her good night before we went to bed, and said I love you. She was in the bathroom that night. She was brushing her teeth, and so I just said it through the door. I said good night. I'll see you tomorrow. And those are the last words I was ever going to say to her. And that's just, I didn't know that at the time.
That didn't cause guilt in you, did it?
Um, I did struggle with guilt a little bit, not as much as a lot of people do, because the thing is, again, guilt's very normal. I want to normalize it for people because, especially
Mhm.
parents who have lost children, we feel like it's our responsibility to take care of them. So I did go through some of that. Like I should have, said, kissed her that night or something,
Right.
or things like, well, she was seeing the cardiologist. Should I have taken her to another Well, she's seeing one of the best cardiologists in the world. We live in Cincinnati, and Children's Hospital has amazing cardiologists. So there was that. She had rheumatoid arthritis, so I was giving her injections for that every other week, and I'd given her injection on Monday. So I thought, well, did I do something wrong? Did I
Oh my
just go wrong with the
gosh.
injection, or should she even been on these medications? Maybe I should have. So all those things start to go through your head. So I want to normalize that for people. For me, though, I have to say it wasn't as bad as this for a lot of people. I'm a very logical person, so I'm like, I did everything I could possibly do. I took her to the best doctors in the
Mhm.
world. I
Mhm.
did everything the doctors recommended. I remember Shane used to say to me, "Daddy, you don't have to tell me you love me all the time. I know it." So I knew that I did express those things, and
Mhm.
we homeschooled Shayna. I got to spend a ton of time with her because I work out of the house. I did, while they were growing up. So we
Mhm.
had wonderful, times together. But again, when people go through this, that your brain normally naturally goes to like, I should have done something better. I should have done something differently.
Well, and with my podcast, listen to a lot of people ask psychic mediums questions,
Hmm.
and so many of them are guilt related.
Yeah,
And that's a really heavy burden to carry.
it
It is.
is.
It's just you've lost someone, and then you're having the guilt in addition to it. Um, so tell us a bit about how your work with Brian, and then I'd like to know how that evolved into the other work with your book and your podcast.
My work with
Um, oh, not Brian. What was his name? I've
Mark.
lost it. the other fellow that you studied with, and he had a co-founder with the group too.
Oh, it was Mark Ireland. Mark
Mike,
Ireland was,
Mark Ireland. Yes,
yeah,
I'm
Mark's one of
sorry.
the co-founders of Helping Parents Heal.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I said, Mark was the one that introduced me to the organization. Someone, introduced me to Mark, and
Hmm.
then I started. We had an online group, still do on Facebook, and so a couple of other people and I ran the online group. So we would, set up the meetings, and we would help parents that were coming in and stuff like that. So that's how I got started with working with other parents.
Hmm.
And it's really wild because there was this whole series of synchronicities that happened. My daughter Kayla said, "Let's go to Arizona for vacation," which we had never been to Arizona before. But my girls love the desert or love the beach, and she goes, "I don't want to go to the beach without Shane. Let's just go someplace
Yeah,
completely different."
because there's no beach there.
So let's go to Arizona. And so we went to Phoenix, first time we've ever been. And then we get there and we realize that Elizabeth Blasson, who's the other co-founder of Parents Hill, lives in Phoenix, Arizona, just outside of
Oh.
Phoenix. So we're like, well, we're here. We might as well meet her. So we met her, and that's how I got really, connected with the organization. So, all those things started happening. And then after all those years of working with parents, I remember there's another synchronicities. There's a woman, she's a psychic medium, and we were really good friends. And she said, there's this life coaching class online I think you'd be really interested in. And I was like, why would I be interested in life coaching class? I never mentioned that, never thought about it. But I ended up taking that, and then I became a certified life coach, and said, okay, well, let me start to work with people one-on-one, which is what I do a lot of now, to again help people understand you're not alone. What you're feeling
Hmm.
is normal. The guilt is normal. We talked about guilt. It's normal, but it's not helpful. So it's like, let's normalize it, but then let's figure out how do we move past it. So I try to help people figure out, how do I move past this guilt so I can get on to my healing?
I imagine, because I know that my widow friends, we've all handled our guilt differently.
Hmm.
That some takes a lot of time. Like I had one friend who lived on grilled cheese sandwiches for 7 years
Mm.
before she could address everything.
Yeah.
And then, how do you handle when everybody's at a different spot? Do they have to be ready to make the change or to try to learn at that time?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I offer a free complimentary session before I work with people, and I've only had one person who I said, you're not ready to work. She wasn't ready to work on it.
Hmm.
You don't have to be at any particular point other than the point of wanting to heal.
Mm.
And for me, I have to say, when I first, and I understand people that don't, because when Shayna first passed, I said, I'm not going to heal. I don't even want to heal. I don't, I was like, don't even talk to me. Don't talk to me about the future. I was very much like that. And then I went to a grief meeting with the woman who had lost a daughter about probably, I think, 10 years prior. And this woman was miserable. She was bitter. She was angry. You could tell she came to this meeting every week or every month just to tell the same story over and over again. And I walked out of that meeting and I said, well, I said I wanted to be that person, but I can't be that person. It's not fair to my wife. It's not fair to my daughter, Kayla.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not
Hmm.
something I can do. So when people are
Hmm.
at that point, when they say, I want to do something, I just a desire, it's really all it takes. It's just a desire. And then we can work on, from there. So I work with people and I'll say, you know, I look for unresolved anger and unresolved guilt. And guilt is basically anger that's turned inward. And it's like, so
Right.
if they have that, I'm
Yes.
like, let's work on that before we start working on the grief. Because if you have guilt, it can hold you back from even wanting to heal. You might feel like, well, I deserve to be miserable. And that's not a great place to come from. So we work on techniques like, how do I get past the guilt? And then once we do that, then we can start moving forward.
Okay, so I thought of two questions while you were talking. Do you help people other than through the loss of a child? Just any grief that they're experiencing through death?
Yeah, absolutely. I've helped people that have lost cats. I've had two clients that have lost cats, people who have lost parents, people that are just going through difficult times in life. Because the thing about grief is the loss of anything you expected or hoped to be there. So that could be a relationship, it could be divorce, it could be job, it could be health. So it doesn't have to be the loss of a person. I'm working with a client right now. She hasn't lost anyone yet, but her mother has stage 4 cancer. So it's anticipatory grief in that case. It's
Oh,
any
wow.
type of loss that we're going through.
Brian, I needed to talk to you about a year ago
Mhm.
because I do have some people I'm going to really recommend that they watch this video um, because they have fresh grief but they had seen someone go through the stages of death.
Yeah.
You can help with that. And the loss of a pet, I mean, that's just like losing a family member. It is. You
Pets are
know,
family members. I jokingly say pets are people too. It's like
yeah,
we love our pets, and in many cases more than we love people because they give us unconditional love.
unconditional,
Yeah,
no matter what. Yeah. Gosh, I forgot the other question that popped into my mind. It'll come back later.
sure.
Anyway, oh gosh. Um, well, tell us a little bit. Okay, so your life coaching sounds wonderful, and that's great that you're being a service to give a free, kind of like a meet and greet, so you can see if there's going to be a good fit.
Hmm.
Were you able to help that lady that got stuck in that track for so many years that she couldn't let go of it?
Oh, that woman, that was way early before I started doing this. She was
Oh,
that was like a few weeks after Shayna passed. So
mhm.
I've only had one person that reached out to me that where I was like, I can't work with you, at least right now. I mean, not ever. Excuse me. Without revealing too much about her personal details, this is a woman whose husband had gone to the hospital. Uh, she felt like the doctors had screwed things up,
Ooh,
and we talked 2 or 3 times, and every time we talked, all she did was tell the same story over and over again. Ask me
oh,
why did they murder him? Why did they kill him?
oh, wow.
And she wasn't really even ready to receive anything I was trying to offer to her.
Mm-mm.
So that was the one person I was like, I'm not going to waste your time or your money, because she wasn't ready. Usually,
And
by the time people reach out to me, they've already started. They've tried other things. They've been to maybe religious, maybe to a pastor or something. A lot of them
therapist.
have been to traditional therapists and
Mhm.
found them to be lacking. I do work with people that are still seeing therapists, so sometimes they'll work with me and with the therapist at the same time. Because I've gone through it, I think I can offer a different perspective. Also,
Exactly.
because I'm not a professional therapist, my daughter is a mental health counselor, and she's like, "We're not allowed to give advice. We're not allowed to tell personal stories. I'm
Oh,
allowed to be
really?
human." Yeah, that's their training. Their training is basically to, just do reflexive listening. And my wife and I watched a TV show the other day, and this therapist was on. And I'm like, I shouldn't say this, but this is why some people don't like therapists because they can be they're trained to be a certain way, and they're trained not to give advice, and they're trained not to relate person. Now they do make exceptions, but generally speaking, they don't. What I try to do with people is like say, again, what you're going through is normal. I've been through what you're going through. I know how it feels. You can say anything to me. Like uh, there's a huge thing with again, especially parents. I work mostly with parents, but with spouses too. Like when your loved one crosses, you want to be with them, and it doesn't mean you're necessarily suicidal. It doesn't mean you're going to take your life, but you just like don't care. You just like I don't want to be here. And I have had thoughts like I was driving in my car after Shayna passed. It was a beautiful sunny day. I remember I was in Kentucky. I live just outside of Kentucky, and I was driving. I thought if I just turned my steering wheel and went off the road, it'd be over. I could be with her. And that was just a fleeting thought that I had.
I know.
And I want to normalize that for people. Not if you're having suicidal fixations, then you should get help. Definitely. But I've talked to too many parents that have said, I was standing in the kitchen, I was holding a knife, and I just thought, I could do this right now. That's a normal thought when you've lost a child or you've lost a spouse, someone who you
Mhm.
expected to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah, this resonates because I went down that road also too.
Hmm.
Not wanting to live, just wanting to die. Even though I had children and grown children. The
Right.
grief is so encompassing.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention about therapists too, because I think they can be very beneficial,
Absolutely.
but they're all different. So you have to find somebody that resonates with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You do. The fellow that I had seen, um, I really liked him. He was about just a little taller than me and long hair, and he had this surfer vibe, even though I'm in Oregon. And I spilled my guts to this man, and I held back nothing. And then he went back to Hood River, which is in Oregon,
Hmm.
and he said, "Oh, by the way, all the stuff that you talked to me about, psychic mediums and all that," he goes, "I believe in that too."
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, they can't tell you that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've interviewed a few on my podcasts that they're called transpersonal psychologists, where they do treat like the whole human, and they can talk about spirituality and stuff. But a lot of them are trained very traditionally. They're very materialistic. They tend to be, or if they do have some sort of spirituality, they can't talk about it. And so I'm not blaming them. And therapists have a wonderful role, but people ask me like, what's the difference between what you do and what a therapist does? And again, I can talk about spirituality. I will share with you personal stories.
Stories. Mhm.
And I've been through what you're going through. When I was taking David Kessler's grief educator certification, there were a
Mhm.
lot of nurses in there, doctors,
Mhm.
people that they said, we didn't get this training when we were going through med school. We didn't get this training when we were going through getting our
No.
master's in psychology. So
Mm-mm.
that spiritual aspect of it, I think for me, it's very, very important. Because if you have a totally materialist point of view, it doesn't mean you can't get past the grief or move on with it, but it sure helps a lot if you know that your loved one is still with you. And if you can
Right.
talk about things
Right.
like soul planning, the fact that maybe just consider maybe this was supposed to happen, it can be very helpful.
Boy, that's and you talk about those types of things with your coaching.
I do. And the thing
Mhm.
is, I don't force anyone, of course, to believe in anything. That's not my role. But again,
Mhm.
I will say to people, I'm a very left brain person. My degree is in chemical engineering, and when I
Mhm.
was a kid, I liked taking things apart and putting them back together because I wanted to know how things work.
Mhm.
So I tell people I don't come to this from like a woo woo thing. I don't come to it from a religious point of view. Like just believe me. I will give them resources. Here's the studies. I know you're a medium. Uh, One of the first books I read on the afterlife was Dr. Gary Schwartz's book called Afterlife Experiments, where
Mhm.
Gary Schwartz took mediums into a laboratory setting and did these blinded studies to show that mediumship actually works. So I'll tell people, go read that book. Read the book by Julie Beischel. Actually study this stuff to understand this is not a wish system. This is not a belief system. This is a conclusion I've come to after examining the evidence.
That's a really good way of approaching it. I must tell you that. It really is. Because you're not trying to convince someone that, oh, we have soul contracts and we agreed upon this before we got here. And yeah, I'm going to remember that, Brian. That's pretty good. That's
Yeah,
good.
and again, we can't prove everything in a lab. And I'm an engineer. I've worked in labs for a long time, so
Mhm.
chemical engineer. So it's not like we have to prove everything that way. But it's good to know that there is evidence for it, as well as it's not just wishful thinking. So, and I'll tell people like, look at your own life. Look at the events that have happened in your life. I'm 64 years old now, so I've had a lot of life experience. The
Mhm.
things that I thought were like terrible, that nothing good could ever come out of this, every single one of them, if I look back on it now,
Mhm.
something good came from it. So I'm like, just imagine, what if there's a reason for this? What if something good can come from this? And then draw upon your own experience. When
Mhm.
you didn't get the date you wanted in high school, or when you got fired from that job, or when you got divorced, or whatever happens to be,
Mhm.
something good probably came out of it.
Mhm. I think your um, sessions would be phenomenal, quite frankly. And I'm not just saying that. I was going to say a bad word, and I didn't do that. So, Brian, what are you hoping to achieve by sharing this knowledge to humanity?
I my grandfather was a pastor, So he's a pastor of the church that I grew up in. So I feel like it's kind of a legacy in our family. And my fifth generation great grandfather was Thomas Jefferson. So I feel like I kind of had this idea of a kind of a mission, built
Mhm.
into my DNA or whatever. But when I was a kid, I suffered a lot. I suffered from like not understanding, like I'm on this planet. Why is there war? Why is there racism? I was taught about a God who was vengeful, a God who was judgmental, a God that I needed to be scared of. And I really want to help alleviate the suffering that people go through, and we all go through grief. It's universal. If
Mhm.
you live on this planet for long enough, you're going to lose someone or something. So we have this universal experience, and we don't talk about it in our society. We
No.
bury it, we hide it away. We
Mm.
don't talk about death. Death is a very natural existential fear, because our biology says I want to continue. That's the way we're evolved biologically.
Mhm.
And we've got people that are lying to us, telling us that we don't continue. So naturally, we're going to fear that. So what do? We either ignore it, and with the fear still there, the fear is still there. We just buried it, or we fear it. And I want to alleviate that from people. I don't want people to fear the one thing that is going to happen. There's only one thing in your life that once you draw your first breath is guaranteed, and it's one day you're going to draw your last breath. So why should you fear
And
that?
people do fear that. People
Of
do
course
fear
they do.
death.
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
That's why I do what I do, because I said I was going to start my story in the middle when I with Shayna. For decades before that, from the time I was about 8 years old until the time Shayna passed when I was 54. No, not before that, but from the time I was 8 until I was in my early 30s, I feared death. I feared death like either first it was God's going to send me to hell. Then it was like, well, there is no God, so there is no hell. Therefore, I'm just going to, there's not going to be anything. So weirdly, we fear nothing. So I'm like, I went through all that. And so I had to construct, my faith. I jokingly call it Brianism. I constructed my faith myself.
I like that.
I studied Buddhism. I studied
Mhm.
Hinduism. I studied Islam a little bit, Kabbalah.
Mhm.
I really got dug deep into the Bible and the history of the Bible, and so I
Mhm.
just tore everything down and I built it all back up to where I am now. And I want to help people understand, you don't have to take anybody's word for anything. Just examine the evidence yourself. And the more I've studied it, the more my fear has gone away.
And I remember when we first talked and you told me about your upbringing, which was so different than what I was raised in.
Mm.
That would, God, that just formed you and shaped you, all your life and young too.
Yeah, it's really really interesting how it affects different people differently. Most
Mhm.
people don't, fortunately, don't grow up the way that I did, and my parents are great people. They're still here. My grandfather is a great
Oh, they
person,
are nice.
fantastic. People that love and stuff, but they were fed this lie about this judgmental God. So
Mhm.
but there's other fear people have, the materialistic fear, the people that grow up and say that, well, there's nothing to you but your body. There's no meaning to the universe. There's nothing out there that cares about you. You come from nothing, you will return to nothing. And that's another real fear that people have, is
Mm.
that there's nothing and there's no meaning.
Wow. I just can't imagine that. Wow. Okay, well, tell us about your book. So, if people buy your book, what can they hope to find while reading that?
Well, my first book, Grief to Growth, is really, and it's planted, not buried. And the subtitle means, okay, so when a seed falls to the ground,
Yep.
it looks like it dies, right? And
Mhm.
Jesus talks about this. So we feel like we've been buried, and when you bury something, you don't expect anything to come back. When you plant something, you have a totally
Oh.
different expectation. It's the same motion, but a different expectation. Grief can be an opportunity for growth. So in my book, what I try to do, first of all, is, again, I want to normalize grief for people. I want to say, yes, what you're feeling is normal.
Mhm.
Yes, the stupid things that people are saying to you, they say to other people too. So try not to get too upset when they say things like, well, God needed another angel, or,
Mhm.
you can have another child, or you can get married again, or
Or
all the
she
things
want
that
you to
people
be
say.
happy. Mhm.
Yeah, all the things that people say, those people say those things. But
Well-meaning.
also I want to give people an understanding of like the physical things we go through at grief, grief brain, maybe not being able to sleep. A lot of people said, I feel like I've got early onset dementia. I can't remember anything. I walk in the room, I
Oh
can't
my
remember why I was
gosh.
there.
Scrambles
I'll
your
talk to
brain.
people. I'll say, well, I was talking to someone just the other day and said, we were talking about the first year of grief. They said, I don't remember the first year. And so many people are like, I remember the feeling, but I don't remember any of the details because your brain is just on overload. So in my
It's
book,
true.
I try to help people understand that early part of grief. I call it the white knuckle phase. Here are some ways you can just kind of hold on because you're just trying to survive that first 6 months, year, 2 years, whatever happens to be. So that's what I want to do with people, is to just to help people understand this is what grief is. This is kind of what you can expect, even though it's different for everybody. But there is, light at the end of the tunnel.
Sorry, I'm going to buy your book. It sounds so good. Do you have a copy there you can show us? I
I
didn't
don't
even.
have I don't have one with me, but yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That we could have featured the book on the podcast.
Yeah, if you go to Amazon, it's Grief, the numeral two, Growth, and then it's Brian D as in David Smith. You can find it there, or yeah, that's the
Are
easiest way
you
to find it.
Brian David Smith? Is that why the D?
Yes, the
Okay.
D is because my parents had no imagination. They named me Brian Smith. So if you try to Google Brian Smith, you won't find anything on me. But if you Google Brian D Smith, you'll find me.
Okay. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh about that, but it was kind of funny. Yeah. Oh gosh, Brian, you are a wealth of information. You really are. Um, what are some other things that I haven't covered that you would like people to know
Well,
about you?
I do have a Substack. So it's grieftogrowth.substack.com. And people can find, I do a lot of writing outside of I have a couple of books. But outside of my books, I do a lot of writing on Substack and posting notes and stuff there, and developing a community of people there that people can, interact with. Um,
Perfect.
so I want people to know I'm also on the advisory board of IANS, International Association for Near Death Studies, which
Are you?
is a huge body of evidence we have for the afterlife. Um,
Do you know Greg Young?
I don't know Greg Young, no.
He heads up the Portland chapter.
Okay, yeah.
Hmm.
But so there's there's several bodies of evidence when it comes to the afterlife. There's consciousness studies are pointing to it more and more. There's a great podcast called the Telepathy Tapes that I invite everybody to check out if you haven't heard of it yet. That talks about like what autistic children are doing and other stuff. But there's again consciousness studies, mediumship studies. So check out mediumship from a scientific point of view. Near death experiences is a huge body of evidence. Literally millions, if not billions, of people have had this experience
Hmm.
where they've crossed to the other side and come back. Some of them what we call veridical, which means they can come back and say, "Yeah, I saw my sister, several states away driving in the car, and I can tell you what she was wearing the day that I died."
Hmm.
Or I interviewed a doctor, Dr. Parvi. His name is an Indian doctor who passed away, and he saw his sister cooking dinner in India while he was in the United States. Describe what she was cooking. So we have these veridical experiences. So, people say, "Oh, it's just a dying brain. It's just a dying brain shutting down," and I can argue that all day long. And I've interviewed several people, probably a couple hundred people at this point, who have had near-death experiences, and they're fascinating. They tell us about the fact that we do go on. So I
I
really
agree.
want, so I put all these, resources. I've got courses that you can get if you go to my website. So I really want to reach people wherever they are and
Hmm.
help them to understand that you're not alone in this desire to want to live forever. Queen's one of my favorite bands, and they have a song called "Who Wants to Live Forever," but I don't want to live
Green is your
forever.
favorite?
I'm sorry.
Cream is your favorite?
Queen.
Yeah. Oh, I know Cream.
Yeah.
I'm a little older than you, so yeah, I
Yes.
know
So,
them.
the thing is that we all have this desire to make a mark, to have a legacy, to feel understood, to feel like life has some purpose and some meaning. And so I want to assure people it does. And it's funny because my daughter was 15 when she passed away, and I work with a lot of parents, and they'll say, my son or daughter was so young. I don't think I don't want them to be forgotten, and I want to tell people
Oh
that
yeah.
fear is totally unfounded.
Hmm.
My daughter was 15. She only went to public school for 2 years, but it's 11 years since she's passed. Her 26th birthday is actually tomorrow.
Oh
It's 11 years since she's passed, and Shayna is nowhere close to being forgotten.
no, not
So
at all.
we
Not at all.
all we all make our mark in this world in
Mhm.
different ways. But wherever you are, you matter. You're important. I believe that everything is not everything is planned out necessarily, but everything works out for the best. And I look at the world as like this big tapestry or this big puzzle, and we all have our role to play. We all fit in wherever it is we happen to be. So it's your role is just as important as anybody else's role. And
Mhm.
that's another lesson we have from the near death experience. They'll say, when I had my life review, they didn't talk about like the fact that I made CEO or the
Yeah.
fact that I made several $1 million.
Mm.
It was the time I smiled at someone at the grocery store. It
Made
was the
them
time I
feel.
called up a friend and said, "How you doing?" when they were having a down day. So all those things that we consider very little are actually very big things.
Hmm. Gosh, Brian. I always, when I look for people for my channel, I go where spirit leads me. And man, oh man, I am so glad I have met you. Truly, you are a wealth to be able to help people along the different roads and to accept them where they are and
Well, thank
take
you.
them through the process. No, seriously.
Well, I believe spirit leads us where we're supposed to be, and it's really funny, Karen, because I did not believe this before. I did not believe that the universe was a benevolent place.
Well, no, you weren't raised that way.
I did not believe, and it was funny because not funny, but I remember after Shayna passed, I had a medium reading. It was probably 6 months after Shayna passed,
Oh,
6 to 9 months. It's first reading I had, and she goes, "Well, Shayna's saying that this had to happen, that this was planned," and I'd never heard of this concept before,
uh-oh.
and I was like, "Well, that's ridiculous,"
Yeah.
you know. But
Sorry. Yeah.
but the more I learn, the more that I see, the more I understand how that makes sense. That I think that we go through is planned out.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we think of the death of a child as a tragedy, or we lose our spouse, before we're 80 or 90, like we think we're supposed to be when we pass. From our human perspective, it's a tragedy. But from the perspective of spirit, it's like you're only here for a short time anyway.
Yes.
So whether it's 15 years or it's 80 years in terms of the life of our soul, it's not a meaningful difference. So I think we're all here for the amount of time that we're supposed to be here. And as long as we're still here, we still have a role to play.
Yeah. Especially since our souls never die.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
never die.
Yeah.
I have a friend whose daughter was murdered
Mhm.
when she was 18, and he's still not past his grief. And I'll recommend you. I don't know if he'll reach out to you, but I will certainly recommend you and tell him to watch the video.
Yeah. I've unfortunately worked with people whose children died before they were born, miscarriages,
Mhm.
4 months old, 18 years old, 20 years old, whatever age it happens to be. As a parent, it's never the right time. And,
Oh,
and murders, violent deaths are hard. Suicides are really hard. They're all hard. Um, you know,
they are. They
drug
are.
overdoses,
Mhm.
they're all hard from that human perspective. What I try to help people do is let's try to look at this from a little bit higher perspective. Let's try to look at this, what can we find some good in this? And I think about the woman who started Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yep.
The reason she started that organization was because her daughter was killed by a drunk driver. If
Mm-hmm.
her daughter hadn't been killed by a drunk driver, we wouldn't have Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yep.
That's changed all kinds of laws, which has saved countless numbers of deaths. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that little girl got killed so that we could have this, but that's something that came out of this.
Yes.
So we can choose to bring forth something out of anything.
Oh, Brian, phenomenal. Seriously. Um, is there anything, I hate to let you go, but is there anything else you'd like to mention?
No, I think that's it. So if people do want to reach out to me, I know you've been putting on the screen here. My website
Mm-hmm.
is growth.com. It's grief numeral 2. Or you can reach out to me on my Substack,
There it
or
goes.
you can email me, Brian at Grief to Growth. I love to hear from people. Um, any way that I can help, I'd be glad to try.
And you can tell he's very personable and he will treat you well. Yeah. This is going to be a strange question, but I think you can handle it. Does Shayna have any advice to give to our listeners?
Well, Shayna, one of the things about Shayna and her short life is that Shayna lived every day to the fullest. Everything was all out. I remember when she was a kid, she said, I'll never forget this. She said, I want to break my leg. And we're like, Shayna, why would you want to break your leg? She says, I want to know what it's like to walk on crutches. And
Oh
unfortunately, she
my
manifested
gosh.
that. Not too long after that, she tore her ACL and she got to walk on crutches.
Yeah.
But when she had rheumatoid arthritis, as I mentioned, and they had to give her injections of steroid in her joints and her fingers because when it was first diagnosed, it was really, really bad.
Ow.
And Shayna watched them inject her knuckles, and my wife is in the corner sobbing. Shayna just
Oh
so
my God.
Shayna's lesson was live everything to the fullest. And the last thing I'll say, because it was just a few days before she passed, it's a lesson for all of us. She was on her volleyball trip with her mother. I stayed back because it was really expensive. So I stayed back, and her mother was a pushover. So Shayna's driving around this resort in golf carts. She was 15, so she wasn't able to drive yet. She was driving around golf carts with her friends. They're ordering smoothies up to their room. That was their big thing. And she asked her mother at dinner one day, all the girls are getting hamburgers and stuff. Shayna said, can I get oysters on the half shell? And my
Mhm.
wife goes, okay, Shayna, you can get 6. So Shayna got 7 because that was Shayna. It's like, tell her she could get 6, she would get 7. The haircut that she's wearing right there, Shayna had long, beautiful hair.
Mhm.
This was just a few weeks before she passed away. She said, I'm going to get my hair cut. And my wife and I are like, okay, Shayna. So we had a pre-approved haircut she was supposed to get. That wasn't it. She went and she came back, and that's what that's what she had gotten.
But
So
don't you
Shayna's
think that's
message to you
beautiful?
is, I'm sorry.
Don't you think it's beautiful?
I wasn't really happy at the time, but yeah, it grew on me. But Shayna's message is this: it's like live life to the fullest.
Yes.
She loved pizza, ice cream. Tomorrow's her birthday, so we will go out for pizza and ice cream on her birthday. Because I used to tell Shayna, you can't eat this all the time, but Shayna was like, I'm not going to be here very long, so I'm going to live it up.
She knew. Yeah. And I can see the love radiating from that photo. She carried a lot of love with her into this world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she truly did. Brian, it has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. I plan on getting your book. I know other people will, and I hope people reach out to you also.
Karen, it was
And I,
great to talk to you.
yeah, and I like that you doubted and then you researched. That's really good. And for some people, because they can't take things at face value. Yeah. So,
Oh,
Brian,
I'm still a skeptic. Yeah, I
you
am a
still
skeptic.
are a skeptic?
Yes, yes. I think it's smart. I think it's healthy to be skeptical. I believe in mediumship, but doesn't mean I believe every medium.
Well, this is true. This
Yeah.
is true.
So
Yeah.
I think it's good to be skeptical. It's good to investigate things and to look for evidence. I was raised in this tradition. They said faith. You got to have faith. Just believe. And doubt. We call him doubting Thomas. But when Jesus came, and walked in the room, and all the others, Thomas goes, let me put my finger in your side. Let me examine your hands. And Jesus didn't rebuke him, right? So it's like it's okay to examine the evidence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really great analogy. Okay. Brian, you are wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for bringing this into the world. I know that it was arranged, but you've done a wonderful thing with your grief, helping others. So
Yeah,
thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
having me. Yeah.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.